Hello again. So we are going to continue talking about finding out values of trigonometric values and extend what we did in the first quadrant to other angles and other quadrants. And the nice thing about this is if you're okay with the symmetry of everything, the symmetry makes it very easy to find what these values are, at least for sine and cosine. And remember, the sine and cosine are just the y and x coordinates of points that correspond on the unit circle that correspond to the certain angles. Okay, so last time what we did was we found out that the sine and cosine of 45 degrees, or pi over 4, they were both equal to square root 2 over square root over 2. Okay, all right. Now, by just using symmetry, and I sort of did this poorly, but these points, if you wanted to find what the trig values are for 135 degrees corresponds to this point, because from here to here is 45. Add 45, you get 90. Add 45, you get 135. So the sine and cosine should be the coordinates of this point. And the way I see it, they have the same y-coordinate and the opposite x-coordinate because of the symmetry here. This distance, this angle here is also equal to this angle here. So this is going to be minus square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2. Okay. All right. And then to find, what about the point down here? Well, this is going to be, these 2 points have the same x-coordinate but opposite y-coordinates. So this will be minus square root 2 over 2, minus square root 2 over 2. And these 2 points have the same y-coordinate, but the opposite x-coordinate. So here the x-coordinate is positive, square root 2 over 2, and the y-coordinate is still minus square root 2 over 2. Okay. And this, so we said that this point, of course, so now we can go ahead and do this. We already knew that the cosine of 45 degrees and the sine is both square root 2 over 2. 135, that is this point, this corresponds to this point. This would be minus square root 2 over 2, square root 2 over 2. Now, 225, or 5 pi over 4. So we know that from here to here is 180. 180 plus 35 is 225, right? So that's what this is, and so these would be the sine and cosine of that angle. Okay. And then 7 pi over 4, or 315, you could, from here to here is 270, add 45, and you get 315. So this would be, the cosine would be root 2 over 2, negative root 2 over 2. Okay. Okay. And then you can see, from this, you can go ahead and find the values of the other functions, right? You can, obviously, in this case, you would see the tangent. If it were 45 degrees, the tangent is 1. Here, the tangent would be negative 1. This would be positive 1. This would be negative 1. But you can figure out all the other values once you know the cosine and sine. Okay, let's do this again with using 30 degrees. We know last time that the sine, or the cosine of 30 degrees is square root 3 over 2, and the other one is the y-coordinate, or the sine, is 1/2. Okay, so once again, these, with everything being symmetric, the x-coordinate is going to be the opposite, the y-coordinate is the same. With these 2 points, the y-coordinate's the same. I'm sorry, the x-coordinate is the same and the y-coordinate is opposite. And with these 2 points, the y-coordinate is the same and the x-coordinate is the opposite. Okay. So we can see then, therefore, since this is 30 degrees, or pi over 6, okay, we already knew that. Then 150, or minus 5 pi over 6. We know from here to here is 180, and if we subtract 30 degrees, we're at 150. So this is 150 degrees, and that's negative root 3 over 2, 1/2. From here to here is 180 degrees. From here to here at plus 30 is 210, okay, or 7 pi over 6. So the sine and cosine are both negative. And then, once again, here's 360. We can subtract 30 degrees. We get 330. So the cosine is positive square root 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Okay. All right. So then the other thing, the other case with 60 degrees, for 60 degrees we found out in the last video that the cosine was 1/2. The sine was square root 3 over 2. So we can do the process again by symmetry. This will be negative 1/2 square root 3 over 2 and so on. Okay, so 60 degrees, so it's 1/2 square root 3 over 2. Okay, 120, we go from here to here is 60, and from here to here is 60 as well. So from here to here is 120 degrees, so the sine will be, or the cosine will be negative 1/2, the sine will be positive square root 3 over 2. From here to here is 180, 180 plus 60 is 240, okay, or 4 pi over 3. So these values will be the trig values, the sine, the cosine and sine of that. And then 300 degrees, we can see that this will be 1/2 and negative square root 3 over 2. Okay. All right. So, and then once again, you can find out what the tangent and the cotangent and the secant and the cosecant are just by using the formulas that we used before. And everything is in terms of sine and cosine. Okay. Finally, we can handle negative the trig function values of the negative values and angles outside of 0 degrees to 360 degrees, or from 0 to 2 pi. Just keep remembering that negative angles just mean we're moving in the opposite direction. We're moving clockwise instead of counterclockwise. So for negative pi over 2, we start here, we go in this direction. This is the same thing as negative 90 degrees, right? So we're down here. The y-coordinate, or the coordinate of this point, is 0, negative 1. So we could see that the cosine of negative pi over 2 would be 0, and the sine of negative pi over 2 would be negative 1. For 5 pi over 2, there's a nice little trick. Let's say 5 pi over 2 is basically, you can think of this as 5 times 90 degrees, okay? So from here to here is 1 pi over 2, 2 pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, 4 pi over 2, and 5 pi over 2. See, 5 pi over 2 differs by pi over 2 by a multiple of 2 pi. So here we'd be at 5 pi over 2 corresponds to that point again. So, and of course this point is 0, 1. So the cosine of 5 pi over 2 would be 0, and the sine would be 1. Multiples of pi are even easier. We start here, we go, remember pi corresponds to negative 180 degrees. In the opposite direction, we are at this point, and this point is, the coordinate of this point is negative 1, 0. So the cosine of negative pi is negative 1, and the sine of negative pi is going to be equal to 0. And 8 pi 8 pi just corresponds to this is 4 times 2 pi, that's 4 revolutions. So we go here, or if you want to do it this way, you could say here for 0 pi, 1 pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi, 7 pi, 8 pi. But either way you get at this point, so the point here is 0, 1, I'm sorry, 1, 0, so the cosine of 8 pi is 1, and the sine of 8 pi is 0. Okay. Another way to memorize this is that, really, if you have an even number times pi, you're at this point. If you have an odd number times pi, you're at this point. So you just keep that in mind. All right, so how about what happens if we want to talk about multiples of pi over 3? Well, here's what I've done, in this case, pi over 3 corresponds to 60 degrees. And, 360 degrees divided by 60 is 6. So that's how we get these 6 kind of points spread out here. And like this corresponds to pi over 3. This would correspond to 2 pi over 3. This corresponds to 3 pi over 3. This corresponds to 4 pi over 3, this corresponds to 5 pi over 3, and this corresponds to 6 pi over 3, and this would actually correspond to 7 pi over 3. Okay. Well, the coordinate of this point we know is 1/2 square root 3 over 2. Okay. So that would be the cosine and sine of 7 pi over 3. What about 2 pi over 3? Well, we can start here and go backwards. This would be negative pi over 3. This would be negative 2 pi over 3. Okay, and we know from the symmetry that this is going to be the opposite of these two, right? Okay, so this would be, so here the cosine of negative 2 pi over 3 would be negative 1/2. Sine would be negative 3 over 2. Okay. Okay. And then, how about this, guys? We can do it with pi over 4. Pi over 4 is 45 degrees. We can break this circle into 8 equal parts. Okay. So this corresponds to 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4, 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, 5 pi over 4, 6 pi over 4, 7 pi over 4, 8 pi over 4, 9 pi over 4, 10 pi over 4, and this would be 11 pi over 4. Okay. And because we know that this coordinate of this point is square root 2 over square root 2, this is going to be negative square root 2 over 2 square root 2 over 2. So that would be the sine and cosine of 11 pi over 4. Okay. And then finally you can see that negative pi over 4, we can just go in here and go back 45 degrees. We're at this point, which is negative pi over 4. The coordinate of this would be square root 2 over 2, negative square root 2 over 2. So the cosine would be negative of negative pi over 4 would be square root 2 over 2. It's the same as pi over 4, and cosine of, or the sine of negative pi over 4 would be negative square root 2 over 2. Okay. So you can do it that way. Now we're going to see that in general from some properties that the sine, if you replace an angle with its opposite, the cosine stays the same, but the sine becomes the opposite number. But we'll talk about that later in some other videos. Okay? So right now your unit circle is going to be your best friend. Take the time to draw the unit circle, label the interesting points, the necessary points, and just take your time, use the symmetry of the unit circle to help you out. All right, and thank you, and we'll see you next time.